Fortnite hasn't exactly had the best relationship with adding weapons or items that keep the meta of the game balanced. Do we dare mention the Infinity Blade? But it seems like only OGs remember stuff like the Hawkeye's Bow Mythic or the Batarang, so let's go back to the very first Mythic of all in 2019. 2019 starts off really late into Chapter 1 as the first ever Mythic weapon was actually only added in Season 7. And most of you already know what I'm talking about, the most broken weapon in Fortnite history, the Infinity Blade. You were able to get this thing in the same spot every game, and it very quickly became the most sought after weapon in a match, not to mention how OP it was, but I think we all already knew that. And as quickly as the Infinity Blade was vaulted, we moved into Season 8, which gave us a crossover that was absolutely stacked full of mythics, and of course I'm talking about the endgame LTM. We had so many new weapons to play with which haven't returned since. Things like Captain America's shield and Hawkeye's bow never came back to the game. We even had items like Stormbreaker and then guns and jetpacks for the Chitaris. All of these were the first batch of mythics after the Infinity Blade, but again, they were only in an LTM. For mythics that were just items in regular matches, we all had to wait until Season X for that. And those came with the Fortnite x Batman crossover, which took the internet by storm. We were able to run around with explosive batarangs, which are some of the most fun explosives we've ever gotten. And it was topped off by the Mythic grapnel gun, which is similar to the grappler, but also a glider redeploy. This thing was huge for rotations, and a lot of players absolutely loved this one. But unfortunately, it didn't last long, and Chapter 1 was brought to an end. Luckily though, Epic Games were just getting started as we moved on to Chapter 2, Season 1. In late 2019, we got an insane amount of mythics in just a couple of months. It started with the Mythic Goldfish, which was a weapon that had a 1 in a million chance of spawning. Nobody even knew about it for the first couple weeks of Chapter 2 because it was that rare. And then we had our first live event of the season, which was the Star Wars collab. And as boring as the event was, it actually gave us some insanely fun mythics. Of course, we had the First Order Blaster Rifle, which was really fun to get from the Stormtroopers. But the real exciting mythics were the lightsabers, and there were a bunch of them. We had Kylo's lightsaber, Rey's, Luke's, even Mace Windu's. Now, we've only gotten these back in the game once, and it was for May the 4th, but a lot of the community say these are some of the most fun mythics we've ever had, and we should definitely get them back soon. But that fun had to end, and so the lightsabers got vaulted, taking us straight into the new year, and that was, of course, 2020. 2020 was an incredible year in terms of mythic items. It was absolutely stacked. It seems that in this year, Epic realized the potential of these weapons and tried to stack as many into one season as possible. And the first season of 2020 was a testament to that with Chapter 2, Season 2. Instead of having them in the loot pool, Season 2 was the first time that Epic decided to make mythics boss weapons instead. Sky would drop a Mythic assault rifle and a Mythic grappler. And at the time, the regular grappler wasn't in game, so they just released it as a mythic even though they are identical in stats. And the same went for her Scar as well. It was just a regular assault rifle, but other bosses had way cooler weapons such as Deadpool. He had the Mythic dual hand cannons, which is super unique. I mean, they were basically dualies, but they were deagles. And they were even more than just that, because every time you hit an enemy with them, you would actually heal up with 3 HP per shot. So it was literally a siphon dual-wielding hand cannon. They were awesome. And other items appeared in Season 2, like Midas's drum gun or Brutus's minigun. Meowscles had the Piao Piao rifle, which is just a hilarious name, and then Tina had the most OP of all the Season 2 mythics with the Kaboom bow. A lot of people remember that one, but even more memorable items came with Season 3. Much like the Mythic Goldfish, Season 3 added a mythic consumable called, well, the Mythic Mushroom. Creative name, I know. But this was something that had a 1 in 10,000 chance of spawning, and it was extremely OP. It would give you full shield immediately, which was just insane, but that's why this was a mythic. But the bosses for Season 3 also pulled through with some wild weapons. Jules took over from Midas to get her own drum gun, and she even got her own version of Batman's grapnel gun. Then Ocean had her own burst and chug jug, and for Kid, he took over from Meowscles, but instead of the Piao Piao rifle, he had his own mythic shockwave launcher and charged shotgun. These were the 2 most popular mythics of Season 3, and the shockwave launcher was especially unique. But the most mythic-filled season of Fortnite history was just around the corner, and it was obviously Chapter 2, Season 4, the Marvel season. We don't even have time to cover every single mythic in Season 4 because there are so many Marvel ones. And a lot of the characters even had 2 mythics at a time. But the most memorable of these mythic abilities were Doctor Doom's mystical bomb, Groot's bramble shield, and Iron Man's unibeam. The unibeam was especially infamous because it would blast anyone through walls. It was like the railgun, but 10 times more terrifying. There were also mythics like Silver Surfer's board, which was used by so many pros to drop on unsuspecting noobs. And even though there were way too many Mythics to count, they definitely left a good memory in a lot of our minds. In fact, the impression was so lasting that not a lot of people remember. Season 4 actually had other Mythics that weren't even Marvel. One of these was the Mythic Witch Broom, which came out during Fortnite 2020 and was kind of similar to Silver Surfer's board. And then speaking of Fortnite, Shadow Midas returned from the dead with the return of his drum gun from Season 2. And with the end of Fortnite in Season 4 also came the end of 2020, and thus it brought us to the present year in 2021. So we're in the present of 2021, which kicked off with a bang. I mean, Season 5 began and gave us even more crossovers than the Marvel season did. But surprisingly, as many crossovers as there were, most of them were only skins. Unlike the Marvel season, Season 5 only had a few mythics for the crossovers, and the majority of them were from Star Wars and The Mandalorian. Mando walked around the island, and you could kill him and take his jetpack and his Ambin sniper rifle. These were amazing items and some of the most useful in Season 5. The sniper rifle had a great thermal scope that was extremely handy in a lot of situations. But unfortunately, the third Star Wars mythic in Season 5 was actually completely unusable. Not in a buggy way, it was literally just not obtainable. Of course, I'm talking about the E11 blaster rifle, which was Mando's weapon of choice. He could absolutely blast you from miles away with this thing. It was insane. Sometimes it felt like he had aimbot. And Season 5 also gave us the Predator as the secret skin, and anyone who knows about the Predator knows that one of their scariest features is the ability to turn invisible. So Fortnite completely brought that to the game. At this point, we are 15 seasons into Fortnite, and we never had a device that could turn us invisible. I mean, I guess if you don't count those game-breaking bugs every season. So the Mythic cloaking device did exactly that. It definitely spiced up the game, but even for a Mythic that could literally make you invisible, not many people use this thing. You had to fight the Predator over at Stealthy just to get it, and it was a pretty bad drop in itself. Luckily, we swiftly moved into Season 6 with an amazing live event that introduced us to the Spire. And with the Spire, we're given a ton of new bosses, NPCs, and more. It wasn't like a dozen henchman bosses scattered around the island like in the previous seasons, but we still got our fair share of mythic items, and some of these were insanely OP too. The most memorable of Season 6 mythics were the Spire Assassin's Primal Shotgun. The original Primal Shotty was already insanely overpowered at the start of the season, but Epic went and made it 10 times worse when they introduced the Mythic version. This thing absolutely shredded through builds, ammo, and people. It was really hard to combat against it, which actually resulted in its own downfall. Once the community began complaining about the Primal Shotties, Epic realized the result of their actions. An OP gun is one thing, but a Mythic version of it is a lot worse. So, in a panic, they nerfed the regular version and completely vaulted the Mythic. And it turns out they had a backup plan because the Spire Assassin's Primal Shotty was quickly replaced with a new fresh item named the Spire Assassin's Recycler. And like the regular version of the Recycler, this Mythic was way less OP than the last one. In fact, it was probably the most unused Mythic of all time. While the Recycler was a fun and unique weapon, it just wasn't good enough, even as a Mythic. But another more secret Mythic existed in Season 6, which wasn't obtainable at all. It was the Spire Guardian's Primal Assault Rifle, and was used both by the Spire Guardians and Aurelia. And this thing was hit scan. It was really insane. But weirdly, if you stood still, the AI actually had a harder time hitting you. It was kind of weird. But now we have the current season with Chapter 2, Season 7. Aliens have invaded, and while we've gotten a lot of cool, wacky alien technology, we've also gotten barely any mythic weapons. The only mythics we've got this time around have been from the NPC bosses around the map. We have the Mythic Ray Gun from Zig and Choppy, which is a pretty fun and useful weapon and probably the best mythic of the season. And the only other mythic is from Dr. Sloan herself, and it's literally just a mythic pulse rifle. And while it sounds like it would be powerful, Sloan's pulse rifle was actually a little bit weaker than Tony Stark's pulse rifle from Season 4. So not exactly that many people are using it in the current season. And that is every single mythic in Fortnite covered. You're all caught up. Thanks so much for watching, guys. It's been Tommy, and keep it here on Top 5 Gaming.